So I'm just going to talk you through what you're going to need for your bracelet. First of all, obviously you need your beads. You'll also need a length of wire to correspond to each bead. So if you have 8 beads, you need 8 lengths of wire. These are 1 inch long, so that gives me space to make a little spiral at the end of the head pin, and then also to make a loop at the other end once the bead is on. I'm also going to cut a piece of chain that is just under 7 inches for my wrist. This is because I usually wear a bracelet that is 7 inches, and with the extra bits of the clasp, I'll need to account for that as well. So perhaps if you want to just check the length of the chain around your wrist depending on its size before you cut it. But I've allowed for 8 inches for the ones of you who have kits. You also need an open jump ring. This is to attach this closed jump ring to your chain, so I'll show you how to do that in a while. And then you also need your clasp so you can secure your bracelet onto your wrist. To make the head pin, take a 1 inch piece of wire, or a little bit less for this size bead, 4mm bead, and using your flat nose pliers, fold the very end over back onto itself and then squeeze. It's a bit fiddly, but you'll get there. Different beads have different holes, so the size of this end bit will depend on A, the design, and B, the size of the bead hole. So I'll just show you with this pearl. It's got a very small hole, so that head pin is perfectly well sized to hold it on. I'm using these beads for this bracelet, and obviously it's not big enough for this bead, so we're going to do another fold. This gives it a nice spiral shape and can also be a rather nice feature. You can keep going with your spiral to make it a pretty end, but you actually need it to be bigger to hold the bead in place. So if you're making this bracelet, we want to attach it to the chain before we close the top of the head pin and make a loop. So I'm threading it onto the chain. This is just to show you how it works. Then you take your round nose pliers and make a little loop. Make sure the chain part is in the loop if you want to attach it to the chain, or if you're making a cluster necklace or using the beads in a different way, maybe attaching with a jump ring, you can just keep going round and making your little loop. This loop is rather small, you probably want it to be slightly larger than that, but it does look big enough for most jump rings. And then any loose bit of wire you can just snip away. And use your flat nose pliers just to tuck it in so you don't get any sharp edges. So here you can add your head pins directly onto the chain. Thread the top of the head pin through the chain, and you can either space them out evenly along the chain or do it in clusters. Then once it's through, bend it round using the round nose pliers, then holding it in place, making sure that the chain is right at the top part, like this. Then you can tuck your wire in between the pliers and the bead and take it round. You can take it round once or twice to secure it, and you can make it go round and round again, and it will give you a nice feature of a little spiral at the top there, but I'm just going to keep mine fairly simple. Then you need to snip it off like before, and then tuck in any loose end. It doesn't really matter what order you do this in, but I just want to show you also how to attach the clasp. This clasp has a little ring that's attached to it that opens, so it's quite handy. You can then open it out a bit like opening a door, open it sideways so you don't change the shape of the loop rather than out, if you see what I mean. Then you can just thread it through the end of the chain. You might need reading glasses for that. And then close it up and just make sure it's well closed. If your clasp doesn't have a ring attached, you can just use a jump ring and again open it from side to side rather than opening it out. And at the other end you need something for your clasp to hook onto, so this is obviously a jump ring. I'm going to open it side to side like this so you don't change the shape of the round. Then you need to add your ring and your chain. The jump ring that goes on the end needs to be a closed one. It's okay if it's an open one, but it's obviously much more secure if it's a jump ring that's soldered closed. This is a 5mm or possibly a 6mm ring, and I think it's a 4mm small open jump ring.